No matter how high-tech, highfalutin, lazy, or foo-foo America gets, we will never stop hunting and fishing. This is the Hunting Quest.
The Hunting Quest.
We take 1 hour of every week and talk about our favorite things in the world, hunting and fishing. You'll get tips and help on the fishing environment locally in the DMV area. Plus, we're going to have fun along the way. This is the Hunting Quest. And now your hosts, Mike Tippin and Mark Davis.
Look. A little louder. All right. No, there's no in between there. So, okay. So we're here. It is, oh my God, we didn't do anything we were supposed to do.
No, we didn't.
I just realized that we didn't do anything.
No.
Oh man, we were a joke. So we were supposed to have drawn a winner for the rod. We didn't do that. I was going to show what the new giveaway was going to be. Mm-hmm. Not going to do that because we didn't give away the rod yet. We didn't get a list of when people are coming. Okay, so look, we didn't do any of the stuff we said we were going to do. Unfortunately, I mean, it completely slipped my mind until just now. That's the first thing. So yeah, it completely slipped my mind doing that kind of stuff.
All right, there we go. That was loud. These headphones are loud. That's better. That's getting better.
Yeah, well, I tried to do sound check earlier, but you know.
That's okay. No. I'm good now.
I'm okay. We can make this work.
Yeah, it was just like really, really loud for a minute there. So anyway.
Yeah, so we did not get the person picked for the winner.
No, we didn't.
But we will do that as soon as possible. Forget about that. So that's something that was not done. I didn't do anything that's interesting this week. Did you do anything interesting this week? Did you go fishing? Did you do anything?
Let's see. Saturday was the haunt. We're doing the haunt build stuff. I told you about that.
When did it start?
So VIP media night is this coming up Friday night. Not tonight. This following.
We'll be there live with the Hunting Quest.
No, we won't. And then Saturday and Sunday is going to be their first 2 nights, and then they'll go from Saturday, Sunday to every weekend the rest of October, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in October, and it'll be really, really cool. For those of you who don't know about it, it's called Scream Loco, is their website.
So is it train themed?
No.
Why is it called Loco?
Loudoun County.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing.
So it's actually pretty cool. They've got a lot of really cool stuff going on. The 2 people, Jennifer and Matt, who own the haunt, or who own and run the haunt, they're veterans at doing some pretty spooky stuff. And at one point, Matt had the 7th scariest haunted house in the United States. So pretty cool to see that. And I think the theme there is going to be post-pandemic, post-apocalyptic type thing, and you're in a bunker type setup. It's going to be amazing.
That sounds neat.
Yeah. And so go get your tickets online at screamloco.com. And if you want to volunteer, we still need volunteers. It is a nonprofit, so all the money that's raised goes to help local charities within Loudoun County. So strongly encourage you to get out there and go do that. And we can always use as much help as possible doing that, but it's a lot of fun too, scaring the ever-living Jesus out of people. So,
pretty neat.
Yeah. So that's what we did Saturday. Had a couple things running around, doing some errands, stuff like that. I need to get some honeydew projects off the list, but not a whole lot. This week was really, really busy, so it kind of flew by. Nothing bad, but it was good. It was a lot of fun. Oh, yeah. So I got a new gun. I'm pretty excited about that.
Did we talk last week about you getting a gun at the Friends of NRA event?
We talked briefly, but not like a whole lot. We talked about the fact that I won one, but we didn't talk about
going. We didn't talk about what you won, right. What you got. I just won some binoculars.
Right. I like your binoculars though.
It makes me see better. Ooh, would rather want a gun.
So this is
Not the gun you want.
not the one I want.
No,
But this is my new gun.
it's a gun.
Yeah. So this is a brand new Weatherby Mark V, and it's got the Creocoat bronze on it, and it is chambered in a 300 Weatherby Magnum. Cerakote, sorry.
Cerakote.
All right, appreciate it. And it's chambered in a 300 Weatherby Magnum.
Big round.
Big round. As you can see, we haven't decided on an optic yet, but it's pretty cool.
Did we order an optic for that?
No,
Did we decide yet?
I don't think so, unless Anna did. So that's it, and it weighs like nothing.
I like the bolt.
Well, I
The
do
fluted
too.
bolt.
And that is so slick.
Yeah, that's a nice gun.
And it's threaded.
Yes, it is. It doesn't even look threaded the way they
No,
tapered
it doesn't.
No.
I mean, there is nothing there, so pretty slick.
So what's the plan with that one? When are you going to go shoot rabbits?
What's the game? Exploding rabbits.
Is that a rabbit gun?
No, that's an elk gun. That's a, I don't know. You know that 300 Weatherby.
Oh
man,
yeah, that's
it-
a massive round. I wish I had one to show what it was. The only
They
round
haven't
I
come
have
in
is the compact 45 Colt. We'll talk about that in a minute, actually.
But I did win a gun too.
Yes,
And we can talk about that.
You
Well, I didn't win it. I
at
won
the
it.
front. Well, yeah.
in an
I mean,
auction.
anytime that you give to a nonprofit is a win for yourself.
Sure.
So everyone word that. No, so when we were at the Friends NRA event, which we talked about last week a little bit, they have a live auction,
Right.
and they had a live auction, and part of the auction was there were a couple guns and things like that, and some I don't know, like I think I got a necklace for Anna that she didn't like, and I got some other stuff. But you got a Ruger Precision.
Yep.
In 22,
Yep.
which was pretty cool, and that came with a silencer from
Silencer
Silencer
Central.
Central,
Yep.
which they
look at
delightfully
it.
have a T-shirt provided for the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, honest with you, I'd never heard of them before.
Right.
Before the event, didn't know about them. No, there's a lot of silencer companies out there making stuff. A lot of companies having different ways that they, try to make it more user friendly.
Yep.
I definitely see that that's what part of their big thing is to make it
My
as user
goodness.
friendly as possible.
Yeah.
But they've seemed pretty good so far. Like I said, we can't. I'm not gonna lie to you. I can't speak so much for the product. We haven't used it or seen it yet, but we
Right.
can definitely talk about the fact that they gave to Friends of the NRA, which is
Yep.
a very good thing. You know, to be partners in that, that's wonderful. The fact that they did try to make it seamless as possible
Yep.
and as easy to do as possible. They cut you a really good deal after you know buying the gun from the Friends of the NRA.
Yep.
It came with one of their 22 suppressors. I think you said you went up and got one of their 30s as well.
I did.
So that's a neat combo
I'm excited.
to get, you know, at an event to win the gun with a suppressor.
Right.
So, and
And I can tell you, man, I dealing with it. So I wasn't really kind of sold on this whole suppressor thing. As far as I didn't want to deal with the hassle. It's a lot of paperwork. It's you got to do this, you got to do that. Well, I can tell you. So my guy Alex over at Silencer Central, they call you. You don't do anything. They call you. He actually called me at the RV show, and so but my guy he called me up and he's like, hey, I just wanted to reach out, want to make sure that we're good. You know what's going on. This is everything to expect about what's going to happen. And I said, okay, cool. And so from that point forward, you go in. The process itself has been you create your login, and then they give you the next step, right? So you do that. Then you got to do headshots. So exactly headshots.
photo,
Your passport.
glamour shots.
Glamour shots. There you go.
shots.
That's old school. But no, yeah. So they send you, you got to do your little passport photos, and they tell you how to do it. Everything in here has been well detailed, and they, if there's not a picture or a well written, point that you want, or that, and you don't understand something, there's a video, and if there's not a video, I can text my man Alex, and he will, help me out any way possible. So I did that today. You helped me do fingerprints.
It was neat. The little kit they sent was pretty simple.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we did them a few hours
did
ago.
it.
It comes right off.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. That wasn't too bad at all. That wasn't a pain. Whereas in the past, that had been kind of a nuisance for people.
Yeah.
And then I will say that the little videos
Yeah.
that they had were pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say that. I'm really excited to see it when it comes in. We saw what it would look like made out of plastic.
Yeah. We did.
But it would be really neat to get it out there. And what's really fun too is, so suppressors, and we go back to a lot of misconceptions, and,
Right.
things in general, or maybe not misconceptions, but lack of understanding.
Right.
So when people don't understand things, perhaps they don't understand. They don't understand it. So what they'll do is, so for example, I like to talk about like night vision. That's perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I was adjusting my volume. Night vision. Okay, I talk about this night vision a lot. People come to me, they want to buy like a forward-looking infrared, some type of night vision, some kind of thing like that, you know, and they'll say, hey, I really want this to go shoot coyotes with or something like that.
Sure.
And realistically, there's not that many coyotes out here or things
Right.
of that nature, unless you're going out west really to be valuable for you. But
Sure.
if that's what you want, and that's completely fine. But the problem we have is that people see movies,
Right.
and they see TV, and they see things of that nature. And a lot of times the night vision or the forward-looking infrared that you're going to see heat signatures of and like hot white and stuff, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. It exists.
Not at your
But you're looking at some
consumer level.
very expensive equipment.
Yeah.
You know, when you're looking at a pair of nods from a movie, you know, these special ops guys using 25,000 and up.
Right.
For it just for the goggles.
Right.
And I've seen stuff that's more, you know, some of the hybrid stuff that's high, that's both like $100,000.
Right.
And you know, for the military use for something where they're going to be doing these things, it's not a big deal to outfit guys with that. You're only outfitting 20 guys that are ever going to use them. So when they get that, and then versus what they wind up getting for $1,500 or $2,000, it's fine, but it's not what they saw in the movie. So you have to get these expectations understood. So I tell people a lot of times, and suppressors are the same way. It's not going to be like in the movie. Are there times when your suppressor is going to be really, really quiet and super effective? Oh yeah, there's going to be times.
Sure.
Is every single time you screw to the gun is it going to be quiet? By no means. Handguns tend not to be that quiet. They tend to have they're pretty loud. The barrel's short. The action's really open. It goes through. You know, they just tend to not have a lot of noise reduction. Anything supersonic, you're still going to get that ballistic crack, which is the loudest part. Subsonic ammo is where it works really well because there's another crack. But then you have the problem of things that'll work well with a subsonic round.
Right.
So 300 blackout, fantastic round, suppressed. It'll cycle the gun because it's heavy. It'll work really well. You'll actually hear the impact of the round, in my opinion, more than you hear the round go off. And that's outdoor wise. Indoor, of course, everything is, you know, louder.
Sure.
But, you know, 22 suppressed, really, really quiet, you know, with a subsonic 22. So I tell people a lot of times there's certain rounds that are going to be great. Like if you have a 223 and you're going to crank that suppressor on there, things be quiet. It's not. It's still going to be really loud. It might not be as loud on your end,
Right.
And you might not have as much muzzle flash or muzzle blast going on, and it'll help you a lot with that. But as far as having that crack go away, that ballistic noise, it's your neighbors are still going to know you're shooting.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of times with so I have that big 308 that we shoot long distance with. I put a 338 suppressor on there that we had. What I like about it is that it's a nice suppressor. It's titanium. It doesn't get hot. It's really big. Breathes really well. But
And that's the one by Gentech?
no, that's a silencer code. That's the only silencer code I have.
Okay,
They're
gotcha.
all Gemtechs. But it works well. But what's really nice about it is that on my end, the gun's quieter. I don't have that crack off the muzzle right off the bat. I don't have any flash. I don't have the dirt kicking up everywhere. Whereas I tend to have that more without the suppressor. You'll get tired behind the gun from it kicking up everything, just beating you up.
Gotcha.
When you have the suppressor on, it doesn't do that. So a lot of times what you really get in the benefit of the suppressor isn't so much what you think about.
Right.
Of, it's going to be so much quieter. Sometimes it's just way less muzzle blast, way less noise going on in your end, not versus down range. You know, things of that nature. So
Yeah.
I think I have like 5 suppressors. I have that one, and then I have a 30 cal Gemtech, and then 22 Gemtech, and then a 45 Gemtech, and then I have a 223 Gemtech. And they all work fine.
Right.
Like I said, yeah, I had 223. It does what it does. It's not going to work subsonically.
Right.
The 45 I'll use for 45, 9, things of that nature. Yet again, pistols to me just aren't that quiet.
Right.
They still, even with, you know, outside with the ears off, I'm still like, oh, it's kind of loud. So they don't really tend to work all of that great.
Right.
But yeah, your 30 cal ones, your 22s, yeah, they're great. I always tell people if you're going to get one for the first one, either get a 22
Right.
or a 30 cap, you have a 300 blackout.
Right.
If you don't have having a 300 blackout, then go buy a 22, get some 22 subs, and you really can be really quiet
Right.
and have a lot of fun with it, and it'll work, it'll cycle. Yeah. And there's such a variety of the ammo.
And the main reason, everybody's kind of, well, why did I get two? And to be honest, it was, kind of a no-brainer. They have a buy one, get one out there. So I was like, all right, that's cool. I can do that. But honestly, the main reason why I got, the 30 was I have a 30-06, a Ruger 30-06 guide gun that is absolutely, you saw it. My wife calls it Rainbow Bright. It's one of the laminated stock type deals. Beautiful gun, but she calls it Rainbow Bright. That gun is the loudest gun on the planet. And I mean, I've shot hundreds of different .6s. I can tell you, and my brother will tell you, and people I hunt with will tell you, they can tell when I pull the trigger on that gun because it is so ridiculously loud. And, it doesn't make sense, for me, if I'm shooting, and I've shot 338 Lapuas that are not that loud. I don't know what it is about this gun, but it is ridiculously loud. I mean, I couldn't hear for a day, and it is awful. But you're sitting out in the stand, you can't put earplugs in, and they've got the headsets that, kind of, they have the mic pickup and thing, but then then you lose direction. And you're sitting in a tree stand, you're kind of looking around, you're like, all right, this is not what I thought I was going to do today. And it kind of sucks. So that's kind of the main reason why I looked at it. Now, and I've weighed the odds. I've looked at all the different, well, it changes your shot trajectory, and okay, I got a scope, resight it in. Am I going to take a 300-yard shot with a, with a suppressed, 30-06? Probably not. But can I do it? Yeah, if I sight it in appropriately, it'll be fine.
Well, the key thing, and that's another thing people don't get.
Yeah,
and
you actually gain velocity out of the suppressor.
They'll have this idea that they're going to be like swapping this suppressor off and putting it on and switching it out. It's on. It's pretty much staying on all day and not taking it off. It's not one of those things where you're first thing, it gets really hot second you shoot it. You're going to sight it in with suppressor on,
right?
And you're going to shoot it, or you're going to sight it with suppressor off and you're going to shoot it. You're not going to switch back and forth. It doesn't really happen. And again, we go back to the movies, and I always find it really funny when they'll have like a situation. You'll see some spy movie, and they're running around with a suppressor and a handgun, and then they start shooting, and they're like, I'm going to take it off. It's not going to make the gun any more powerful. It's not going to change it. Why would you take it off? You would still shoot the same way that you were going to shoot before.
Right.
So this whole idea of like even a lot of the quick connect stuff, they tend to sometimes get, there's a lot of carbon building up on there.
Sure.
And a lot of times they tend to fail, and they won't work, and things come unthreaded. I even stopped running all that. I just direct thread stuff now.
Right.
If I just direct thread. Because it's just one more thing that can fail.
Sure.
So... And that's another, perfect example of the misunderstanding of, suppressors that, I'm going to be switching it out, or I'll be doing this, or I'll run around. Now you're going to leave it on, you're going to leave it off.
Right.
I've never been to a class or, taught a class or had anything to do with that where I was, at any point, I was told to switch over, or I told somebody else to switch over.
Right. Well, you're an NRA instructor. You're an
sense.
NRA instructor, so I mean, it makes sense that
So the future. So a lot of times, what we'll do is, if I taught something, let's say you had an AR that you run around all the time with, that's your gun. If you shoot it all the time with suppressor on it, then bring your suppressor and let's shoot it as you use it.
Right.
If you don't use suppressor, then don't bring the suppressor, and we're going to shoot as you. Don't add stuff that you're not going to use. Like for a really good example is I tell people, if you've ever seen the setups for the red dots, everybody makes them now. For a long time, it was just aim point, but now EOTech makes them. SIG makes them.
Right.
Everybody makes them with the flip to side magnifiers. So before they had magnifiers, and they used to be that you could put them a red dot, and they were a fixed mount. So it was a 3 times magnification looking through a red dot. And then they came out with the flip to side. And I remember the first ones that really ever had it. One was it would twist off, and you literally had to stick it in your pocket. And then the other one was LaRue started making these flip to side mounts.
Okay.
It was a cool idea, but then the reality that you don't have time to think about it.
Right.
And even in just like sports shooting, like we were out there, if we went out there in the day and started shooting, if I had the magnifier flipped over, I ran it all day and never moved it. If I had it flipped this way, I never changed it again. I was never doing the things like you get again, like you see where they'd be like, oh, shoot 50 yards, tink, tink, tink. Oh, it's farther away. Flip the magnifier over and go. No,
it doesn't work that way.
You don't do that. You either use it or you don't.
Right.
So a lot of that stuff where people think you're going to transition in and out, I just don't. Do some people? I'm sure there's people who do. Sure. I'm sure you could have 1,000 people tell you right now, oh, I switch my suppressor around, I change and I use this magnification and that and this and that. Really, it doesn't really happen that much. Probably not. And it's just another thing you got to train yourself with. Yep. 2 different ways of how to do it. So I tend to find that you kind of stick with what you do. So if you're going to set it up that way, use it that way. If you're going to use a 3-time magnification, use 3-time magnification. If you're not going to use magnification, don't use magnification.
Right.
Switching stuff back and forth and changing stuff back and forth all day is going to make you most likely less effective. Yep. And it's kind of like, so when we were talking today about red dots.
Oh, yeah.
Red dots and pistols.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it. Is it faster? I'm sure it's faster. Can you find a target, pick up it a lot quicker with a red dot? Yes, you can. You have to practice so much with the red dot to become more proficient with it. If you're a proficient iron shooter and you pick that gun up, you're not going to be a proficient red dot shooter on a pistol. Now, if you're kind of like a mediocre shooter, you're going to pick up both up maybe and shoot fine because you're not so fixated on something.
Right.
Like you got
to suck at something before you get better, right?
Well, when I would, for example, when I would compete with pistol shooting, I can remember going through a course, and at the end being like, I never looked at my sights. I looked at my sights every time, but I never remember looking at the sights because I was so fixated on it. So the first time I picked up a pistol with a dot, I went to find the dot, and I couldn't find it. And every time I can't find the dots because I'm looking on the glass like I would with a rifle.
Yeah, no.
And it's a little different. So what I would wind up doing is look for my iron sights. And when my iron sights popped up, the dot would then come up, which at that point, I'm wasting just as much time.
Right.
Now, once you train yourself just to find that dot, you're good to go.
Right.
So that's another thing, too, where people with the red dot, it's like you're either going to shoot that red dot or you're going to shoot your iron sights. Right. I've never heard of a guy be like, I started shooting the red dot this morning, and then I turned it off and shot the iron sights. Yep. No, you're probably going to – the only time that you're really going to do that is if you're in like a law enforcement position or a military position where they're going to want you to qualify to show that you're proficient with both if one fails and you have to go to the other one.
I get that.
But as far as switching back and forth in music, it's just another
it's not going to happen.
You're never going to do it.
Right.
So
now – I will tell you, and this is the same conversation that we talked about for red dots. Red dots for me, they fractionalize, and we went through that. Whether it's stigmatism or whatever it is, I can't use a legitimate. I mean, and I'm sure the high end red dots probably don't do it quite as bad, but the red dots for me, they star out, and they fractionalize, and I can't. I mean, I know it's there, and I could probably shoot okay, but everything just stars, and I'm like, yeah, this is not okay, and that took a lot, And then I found, we were talking about, I found the
Holosun.
Yeah, the Holosun, but it's etched, right? You said it's
not like etched; it's more of a holographic sight versus like a laser sight. So when you think about, and that's part of the thing too, is that even with your eyes being perfect, even if you didn't have any kind of astigmatism or 2 eyes being, both eyes being exactly the same perfect,
right?
You're still going to have somewhat of a star.
Right.
Like there's never going to be a perfect circle on the lens.
Right.
Until you start to get into holographics, which are different because we're not projecting it like we do with LA. It's a little bit different. But yet again, they're not perfect either.
Yep.
But so all you're doing is your eyes magnifying that. And also 2 things that will cause that is your eyes doing it. Well, a couple things cause it, actually. Your eyes are doing it, so something with your eyes not picking it up right.
Sure.
Something's going on there.
And it's been like this forever. When first time I looked at it, I was like, ooh.
Yeah, it's most likely yours is probably something with one eye being short.
Yeah, more than likely.
So it's something doing that, or it's the quality of the glass.
Right.
So the higher quality of the glass, the better it tends to be, less that you see the flare up. What was the third thing I was going to say? Oh my God, I completely forgot what it was. Oh, brightness.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So a lot of times what guys do is when they find these red dots and they can't find them. So like your original little red dots, like your first RMRs were not laser, they were nothing. They were tubes, so they'd pick up ambient light. Okay. And they projected a little triangle on the screen. It wasn't
like fiber optic or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but you couldn't really see it. Like you couldn't see it. It wasn't like it stood out. It was kind of subdued in there.
Right.
But it was clean, but it was subdued. And you didn't really see it. So when the lasers, and they started to project lasers on them, because yet again, that triangle is more of a holographic design.
Gotcha. So yeah.
Whereas the laser is projecting, like we think of like you ever see the old projection TVs?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where
Yeah.
here's a screen, it would project it like that. That's what that's what your red dot's doing. It's projecting on a glass.
Gotcha.
When you have an open one, it's open projecting right on a piece of glass. It's not enclosed in a tube or anything like that. It's just projecting straight on there.
Gotcha.
When you think about like, you ever seen like your etching on your lenses will light up?
Yeah.
For a scope, when you do that, that doesn't flare up, does it?
No, not at all.
Because it's not projecting
Right.
onto it. So if it's really bright, think of like when a laser goes through or light goes through, the brighter it is,
Yeah.
the more you're going to pick up on
Makes sense.
that breakage.
Yeah.
So sometimes I tell people like, turn your laser down.
Oh yeah.
You know, turn the brightness down, turn that down. You know, look at something that's more quality. Maybe it's just something with your eye.
Yeah.
But if your eyes are sensitive, then you're probably going to be a guy who's probably going to need to spend more money
Oh yeah.
on a better optic that looks better. But I've never said, I would never tell people to not spend money on optics.
Yeah.
It's your best investment overall.
Oh yeah. For sure.
People would always say stuff to me like, "Oh, I bought this gun for $1,000. This optic's $1,000. Are you crazy? I would never spend that." And I'm like, "Well, you're never gonna shoot your like when you sit
You lose
behind
potential.
some garbage optics for years,
Yeah.
and then you get into something really nice. You're like, wow, why did I ever have
Yep.
these junky optics? It's
Yep.
it's so worth it, dollar for dollar, to have something decent."
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there's no equation either. People are like, "Oh, should it be half the price?" I'm like, no, it doesn't.
No.
There's no equation or way about it.
And it's funny because like my brother, you know, for forever and a day, he was like these, you know, he shoots Zeiss religiously, and I was like, all right, cool, you know, whatever. I've shot what I could afford, right? That was my big thing. I shot what I could afford, and sometimes it was a Redfield scope, you know, and sometimes it was a little bit better. You know, Leopold was like the bomb, and then once I shot his Zeiss, and then I could afford a Zeiss. That was it. You know, that was the optic of choice. And then here recently, somebody had a Trigicon AccuPoint that came in, and got to see that. I think it was John's. So those things are crystal clear and just amazing. So
The Trigicon stuff's funny because one of the first things you see when you get into like the world of like ARs and carbine setups like that
right,
is you start to see like, well, now there's a lot of stuff, but for years all you saw was aim points,
Yeah.
EOTechs, Trigicon.
right.
And
Now to be fair, I'm not a big AR person. I'm a big hunter, so I've got a lot of bolt action and semi-automatics that are built on a platform for hunting. Not saying you can't hunt with an AR. I'm just saying, in Virginia 223 you can't. But anyway, keep going.
but you would see those names. And those
Yeah.
there are a lot of cheap stuff, but those were your big three names. And it was funny because a lot of guys would get an EOTech first, or like the kind of thing you could afford. It was still expensive, but you could afford it. And then after that, the aim points and the EOTechs, the aim points and the Trigicons were so much more money. And I remember the first thing I ever got was we had a big ammo shortage years ago. I wasn't even in the gun world. I mean, I didn't in the gun sales world. I mean,
Right.
business or anything like that. And I had a whole bunch of 223, and he was going for some crazy, like $1 something around at the time, or something. And there was a guy who had a store, and but
Right.
it wasn't like a store. It was kind of like a flea market kind of store. And he had an aim point set. It was a Comp M4, which is a red dot, with a flip-to-side magnifier at the time, which was just like, and it was brand new. It was in a box, and he had got it in trade.
Yeah.
And I think I gave him like, I don't know, like 1,500 rounds or something in exchange for it. Which
boy.
was a great deal for me because it
Sure.
didn't cost me anything for the ammo. But for him, he was able to resell it or do whatever he did with it. I don't know.
Right.
And I remember I got that. I was like, this is amazing. And I could never have afforded it.
Yep.
I couldn't have bought it because it was thousands of dollars worth of, a couple of grand probably worth of optics at the time. And then it was so nice. It was so good. It was so amazing. And then I remember I would see guys with Trigicon, they would have the ACOGs. And I was like, man, if I could get an ACOG, that'd be so cool. And I went out and I shot some sometimes. I was like, okay. And then when I got into the gun business, I started to get them.
Right.
I was like, oh, I'll get an ACOG here. I'll get an ACOG here. I think I've got like 6 or 7 of them now. You know what I mean? And then
Well,
like,
you got one on your one that's in here.
that's another one I even forgot about. Yeah. So that's a 6. And then we have a bunch of 3s and a
Right.
bunch of 1.5s and some 1s. And they're so well, they last forever.
Sure.
And they work for what they are. And people are like, I just can't believe you spent this money on an optic. I'm like, yeah, but that optic,
You never have to buy another
I'll
one.
never buy another one.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that the tritium wears out,
Yeah.
so it doesn't glow at night. But other than that, I mean, it works just fine during the day and everything's fine. And
Right.
even at night, the ambient light was still enough to pick up the tube.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, they're just fantastic optics. But then once you get behind an optic like that,
Oh yeah.
and you go to suit up your gun,
Yeah.
you don't want anything else. You
Yeah.
don't want cheap stuff, and you just really want nice stuff.
Oh yeah.
Another thing people do too is you're talking about like an optic. Like I've seen, and I've got one in there right now. I won't say who it is, but a guy dropped me off a Zeiss, and there's a Zeiss scope to go with a rifle, and they have rings on there that were like $20.
Crappy rings.
And I'm like, well, that's not going to be great for the gun
Right.
because even though the optic's solid, those rings are probably going to chatter, and you're probably not going to do well holding a zero.
Right.
I've had that before. People brought me, I don't know, I can't hold zero. I bought a nice optic. Like these rings are garbage.
Right.
You know, it's
So what is let's educate folks then. What would you look for in a good set of rings? You know, and I know they're specific to tubes and they're specific to different things, but what should you look for?
Yeah, so first off, what you want to do is make sure that you're buying the right ones. You can look at the box, you can find out it's usually going to be an inch or a 30 millimeter diameter tube.
Right.
There's 40s, but you don't see this much. That's really big scopes. So that's what you want to make sure that you have that. And then the next important thing is your height. So you want to keep your scope as low to the bore of the barrel as possible. Because remember, when we're doing trajectory-wise, they're not even, and they're going to have to meet up, and where they meet up is where your point is.
Right.
So the farther apart they are, the farther the meet point is. The closer they are, the easier it is to zero the gun in. So that gives you more play in the scope. So the closer they are, the more play that you have that you can adjust. So you want to get it as tight to the gun as possible.
Right.
So that being said, that's going to be, you know, lows, mediums, highs, extra highs. Those are your average, what you're going to see.
Right.
Now, depending on what you're going to do with it. So let's say you have a bolt action rifle and it's got a 2-piece mounts on it. So it's got a piece in the back behind the breech and a piece in front of the breech. At that point with those, you're going to run 2 different rings. You know what I mean? They're not going to be attached. They're not going to be one piece. You're going to run it up there. And depending on what you have, you're going to want to make sure a couple things. You want to buy rings. First off, if they're incredibly cheap, then they're incredibly cheap. So if you're looking at it and it just looks cheap, it's cheap. It's probably not going to be good. But multiple things, like if it has 2 screws in it on the top of it, it's probably not that great. It should at least have 4.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Coming down,
no,
because when we
sense.
go to torque, we want to torque in a pattern.
Right.
We can't torque 2 screws evenly. It's
Right.
just not going to work that way. So you're probably going to want to have 4. You'll see a lot of like really cheap 22 scopes or scopes for air guns and stuff that just have 2 screws on top of them.
Right.
Your side screws are going to go through. You're going to want nice heads on them that look like they can actually take some torque and be on there solid. You can tell the difference between ones that are cast real cheap.
Right.
Because you can tell that they were cast cheaply and they still look like they were cast and they're soft. They're not a hard angle. They're not solid.
Right.
Something like that.
They hadn't ground off the burrs or
Yeah,
anything
they
like
just
that.
they just look like it. And the downside with those a lot of times is that if you set them and you don't torque them right, they'll pull out of them. I mean, they're just that cheap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the key thing is you want to just make sure that it looks like solid quality. It feels like solid quality. They should have a little bit of weight to them. You know, and they're going to run the gambit. Like Leupold, for example, makes some decent, mounts, but they're a perfect example where you could buy mounts that are rings that are $50, and they'll probably be fine for what you're going to use, but you can buy rings that are $250.
Right.
Just depending on what you want. Do you necessarily need like a 6-bolt top? No. Unless you're running some really big things. Yours, running that big round, you might want to get some really beefy, big rings.
Yep.
Also, question is too, do you want something that does sit higher so you could use your rifle rings through it? Yet again, I don't ever see the point that you're not going to use your scope, but that's yet again, some people do that, and that goes back to the conversation we had before too. So you'll see all those kind of options. The other question is, are you ever going to take your scope off? Is there a point where you're going to need to package it or something like that so you need to come off? Most likely, no. But if it does, then you're definitely not going to want to use a 2-piece mount. You're going to want to use a 1-piece mount, and it's probably going to cost you $250 and up for something that's truly going to hold 0. So I tell people when they look at rings, you can get middle of the road rings. They'll probably be pretty good for you for the most part, but definitely 4-bolt tops. Your bottoms, they have some that are Allens. I prefer the ones that have nuts on the outside because they're like locking nuts.
Yep.
And then when you put them on, I tell people too, you got to put them on, press them forwards so they lock in place, torque them down, and use the torque specs that are on there. And then do a torque pattern.
Gotcha.
It's a nightmare. Like, it really sucks putting the scopes on. Like, I've been doing it so much now that to me it's really quick and easy to do. But really, when you sit down there and if you try to use a leveling kit and you don't do it a lot, to try to keep that thing square.
Oh yeah.
you'll go through and crank at the end. There's also some that are designed where they like mount on the side, and as you close them, they like clamp shut. Stay away from anything like that.
Gotcha.
Just ones that come off the top and they go down.
Right.
That's the easiest way. Ones that clamp from a side, ones that are on the side, because
Not a good plan.
they're going to be so much harder to keep level when you're
Right.
doing it. Ones that do like there's some that go kind of like make like a pull, like this as you do them, but by the design, the two screws are on the bottom and top.
Yep.
They're going to pull the scope this way when you're doing it.
Right.
Whereas when you have screws on both sides, yeah, you thread this side, it's going to pull a little bit here, but as you thread this side, it's going to pull it here.
Right.
So if you keep kind of even, you're not going to have that. If all of your torque is here, you're going to have to start your scope here, adjusting as this goes this way.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense.
So the simpler the better.
Right.
You know, a lot of times with it. And as far as mounts, you know, look at that MOA. If you're not planning on shooting very far, don't get anything crazy MOAs because you're going to have problems with ankles and all that kind of stuff like that. And then, you know, those really come into key. And then you have to look at, when we talk about height, the other thing that comes into height is what your end opening is. Because if your end opening is really big, sometimes it won't fit. So you're going to have to get really high sights and things of that nature.
Yep.
So, and if you don't know, don't do it.
Yeah.
Go to a shop, talk to them.
Look, I don't put rings on. I don't buy rings. I don't put on scopes. I don't do any of that stuff at all. I mean, that precision that I got, I handed that over to you. I think Peter's the one that wound up doing it. Peter put it on and bore sighted it, and it's on. And I don't mess with that stuff. I don't trust myself enough about it. So,
well, what's nice is that the way that we have it set up and the way that we level and put everything on there, it's going to be straight.
Yep.
The reticle's going to be torqued on correctly. We're going to bore sight it.
Yep.
When we bore sight it with laser, it's not 100%.
Nope.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes you're lucky it goes out there and it's great. But it's not 100%. But it's going to put you on paper.
Right.
It's going to put you pretty darn close.
Right.
We're going to find out right then if we have an issue too. If the MOAs aren't matching up and we have problems and we can't get the adjustment down, and I can't adjust it on laser here, then you're not going to be able to adjust it out in the woods.
Right.
So that's what's nice is we're able to knock out a lot of those problems, those inconsistencies.
Yep.
And for us, it doesn't take us long because I've been doing it for so many times over and over
Yep.
and over. Whereas when you sit at home and you're still trying to figure out why every time you pull it off the stand and look, it's not where it was,
Right.
you know, even though you've had your levels set. So it's something where I would say if you really don't know and you're really
Don't
skeptical
mess with
about it, don't buy the rings.
just bring them in.
Just go to the shop and say, hey, this is what I need, but don't expect it to be done the next day.
Right.
You know, if you're not bringing the rings in, but if you buy the wrong rings, you're going to be in the same situation, but
Right.
you spend more money doing it.
Oh yeah.
So in manufacturer wise, I don't stand by a specific rings or mounts by any specific manufacturer because every gun, some companies don't even make stuff for certain guns.
Right.
But I say, but you'll learn quickly
Yeah.
by seeing when they come in, like what's real quality. And like
Yeah.
I said, always at least, you know, a four bolt main top, 4-bolt main, like it's a car.
4-bolt main.
A four, it's kind of, I'm kind of thinking like, you know, how it clamps around.
That makes sense.
Same kind of thing. Like you want your tops to be at least 4s. Don't do 2s. 6s are good for the bigger, beefier, you know, type stuff. You see
Right.
that a lot in like the tactical world.
Yeah.
But the reality is that's also something too, you know, that you can use there. And if you're not going to plan on taking it off the gun, if you don't plan on taking it off,
Nah.
don't get anything that is designed for quick release.
Yeah, no.
Don't get anything that has throw levels or arms.
Yeah, no.
Because it's just one thing that can be easier to
Well,
go.
and so
Or you're going to spend a ton of money
Yeah.
to have like some really nice LaRue setup or something.
Well, and here's where, all right, I'm gonna kind of go into the hunting world the way that I, you know, like, I don't hunt here in Virginia, meaning I'm either going to fly where I'm going to hunt or I'm driving, and if I'm driving, it's going to be 8+ hours, right? So if you're going with a guide service, it's really cool because you go out and most high-end lodges and stuff like that, they have a place to go and sight your guns in. And I have found it multiple times. You get off of a plane and you don't sight your rifle in, it's going to be off every time. And so, from the lodge perspective, it's really cool. Same thing with like crossbows. Your string can stretch. I had it this past year. I had a string stretch, and on my Raven, I replaced it. I know I replaced it. I know Farron down at Hoffman's, took care of me. There was no issues. Come to find out, it's just something that happens to crossbows when you fly. So or they get hot, or it's too cold, or any number of things. So anyway, going back to the scope thing, you go to a nice lodge, they probably got a place that you can go and sight your stuff in, and most of them actually require you to do it, right? But if you're going to go hunt public land and you're going to go, you need to be able to have that gun, sighted in, and it's on. But even then, good rings make the difference. Good rings means that if you accidentally bumped it, there's a good chance it's still on. You didn't buy cheap rings, and the rifle's still going to be on. I come down out of a tree stand. I lower it down. I keep all the safety aspects. I lower it down with a safety rope, and then I go down the ladder. It doesn't mean that I haven't lowered it down and that, a gust of wind comes by because we're hunting in the Midwest or something, and it bangs on the ladder. I have enough faith in those rings, big, thick, sturdy rings, that they're not going to go anywhere. But to that note, you got to be cognizant of those things. It's do you want, you talked about it earlier, it's another thing that can go, that can fail. Okay, so limit your chances of failure. Don't go with, if that's what you can afford and that's what you can go out there and you can do, great, fine. But understand that's a really important part of what, of hunting. That's, that's your scope. And that's what's going to be an ethical kill. If you're going to shoot at something, you want to make sure that you shoot and you kill it. You don't wound it. So my 2 cents there. So,
Well, I don't know if you've ever seen my mount scopes up.
I have.
I'll do the adjustment. I'll bore sight it, and then I'll hit it with a screwdriver.
Yeah.
The back of the screwdriver. And I'm always tapping the turrets with a screwdriver, and then I look again, and then I tap it again, and I look again. And I didn't used to do that. And people always ask me what I'm doing.
I saw you do it, and I didn't want to ask. I figured I was just being an idiot.
No, it's so okay. So it's really funny when you adjust the scope. You got it like this, and
Right.
it's either moving a couple of different ways. Either there's a ring, and that ring is holding 2 pieces of wire that make the cross on there, and what's happening is you're moving that ring around, or those 2 wires are hooked to the 2 turrets, and you're physically moving those wires.
Oh, good Lord.
Or it's a screen,
Right.
and you're moving it around,
Right.
but you're pulling it around.
Whatever you're doing, it's moving.
So what we're doing is when I tap it, what I do is I adjust the scope. I look at it. I zero it out, and then I tap it again. I tap it with the screwdriver, and then I look to see if it moves because
Right.
sometimes it'll stick on the negative post.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
So what you're doing is you're making sure that there's no stickage on the other side. So if I'm going from left to right not if I go left, I know left's tight, but the right side might not be tight.
Right.
So I tap it, tap, and if it moves, then I know that wasn't tight.
Right.
And then I do it again. So when people don't do that or do things like that, and they'll go out and it's zeroed and they'll shoot, the gun shakes.
And now you're off.
They'll shoot again.
Then you're chasing.
And now they're mine. They're just done. They don't understand what's happening.
Yep.
And then they'll start chasing around the target. And then what happens? Then your barrel gets hot.
Yep.
Now you got barrel whip. Now you're trying to chase this target, and now you're going from that was close, now that wasn't close, that was 3 inches down, and that was over here, that was over there. And people will do it. Notorious gun for that is that Mini 14. People come in all the time. I have this Mini 14, I can't keep it zeroed. I can't keep it zeroed. Okay, let's check the scope out, make sure the mount's tight, make sure it's good to go, make sure Ruger has its own their own rings.
Right.
I can't think of the word I'm thinking for right now. But they have their own rings that mount on there. They're really tight. Proprietary.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Really nice, solid rings. They're tight.
Yep.
You put them on there, they work fine. They shouldn't be an issue when they're put on there tight. So we'll go through, we'll put them on, and I'll tell the guys, when you're dialing this gun in, shoot 1 round, leave the breech open, and let it sit. Fire another round, leave the breech open, and let it sit. It's way overkill, but that way I know they're not letting that stupid thing get hot, because if you sit there, because it's such an easy gun to shoot,
Oh, yeah.
you go, pow, oh, I was off. Pow, I was off. Pow, oh, it's not that hot. And next thing you know, you're gone. You've lost your zero, and you've got it, and you're gonna have to start all over, and you know, let the gun cool and all that stuff. So,
Right.
I tell people too with regular bolt action rifles when you're doing it, leave it open and let it sit.
Yeah.
For some reason, that doesn't bother people.
No.
But that semi-auto gun, in their mind, they're like, I can get a couple more shots out before it gets too hot. And no, it's just too hot. And that barrel will whip. I mean, like, if you look at slow motion, like, they have videos where you can see the barrel move. If you had any idea how much your whole gun moves when you shoot it, like in super slow motion, like that stuff, like you'll see like the stock separation and like parts. It's amazing how much that thing just like clunks around and moves around.
Hey, I don't ever think about that.
If you watch a video, it blow your mind. Just
right.
blow your mind how much it goes, and especially something like that thing is moving all over the place, barrel whips everywhere the second it gets hot. So yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. We were talking too about different things.
This is cool.
This was
not
interesting.
So cool, but cool.
So this is a.
Hold it up so people can see.
I don't think I can really tell by the angle.
Can they see it?
Can you see it?
Yeah,
you see
she
the
said
inside of it. Okay, so this is a 45. What?
Put it closer.
She said put it closer.
So it's a 45 long Colt. So the bullet should be about that far out the front. This is not a case. This is a loaded cartridge. Like people might think it's a case. The bullet's in there.
That's
The
crazy.
powder's in there. That's not hollow. That's solid. Okay.
That's crazy.
Gentleman brought this in. It was in a I don't remember what a model is, but it's an older lever gun. The Winchester design, like 1880s or something. I don't remember which one it is. But it's really known for cowboy guns. They use them in competition. They're really fast and stuff like that. He had this, and he brought it in and said, I have a cartridge stuck inside. I'm not sure if it went off. I don't know what's going on. It won't eject. What happened was he was shooting fast because he sees people shoot fast with those. He wants to shoot fast. So these weren't really rounded heads, if you can tell how flat the
it's
tip
super
is.
flat.
Super flat.
Yeah.
So most likely what happened was when we think about the angle of the feed, so the round goes in at an angle.
Right.
It gets fed in to the chamber. It caught somewhere.
Just on an edge.
Just
somewhere.
on an edge.
Just smashed.
But he was doing it so fast that instead of going like when you would do a lever gun, you would like it sticks because they naturally will do it.
Yeah.
He was so fast and it just jammed the cartridge all the way in, the bullet all the way to the cartridge, and then fed it in the chamber and then couldn't get it back out.
All right, so I got a question for you. Obviously, that bullet did not fire,
No.
right? It would have. It could have.
So he didn't get the breech all the way closed.
Right.
So
But
that was what the problem was.
if he would have gotten enclosed, I mean, obviously, I mean, you can see it probably flared that end out.
So it
or
definitely
pushed.
flared it out. So would it have fired? Yes.
What
Would
would
it
have
have
happened?
been catastrophic? Probably not. Would it have damaged the gun? Maybe a little bit. Maybe some extractor, ejector, or something would have broke or something. But it wouldn't have destroyed the breech. But the scary part about this is you've changed this bullet now.
You've now increased your compression inside of that shell.
A lot.
Yeah.
So if we think of a 45 long Colt, this is an older cartridge.
Right.
The older powders weren't nearly as sufficient.
Right.
Damn, I can't talk today. Save my life. Efficient as
I knew what you meant.
as the powder we have nowadays. So like a 4570 was initially a black powder cartridge.
Right.
It's now we use it with a regular smokeless powder.
Yeah.
If you take that and you shake it, only like a quarter of it's full.
Right.
If you filled that whole thing up with powder, it would just blow up.
Oh yeah.
So
you got a bomb.
This here was yet again but they didn't fill this whole chamber. Now they don't fill it. So if it's seated down to here
Right.
and his powder was here,
Right.
that dead air chamber makes it so it's less pressure. What he has now is compacted it all the way down.
Yeah.
So you probably would not have gotten a failure in the chamber or the gun or damage, but you may have had massive cartridge failure.
Right.
So you may have blown the cartridge out, got stuck inside, and pain in the ass to
Right.
get out. Dangerous in the sense of, you don't want to do this.
Right.
Dangerous isn't you would have hurt yourself? Probably not.
Right.
It would have sounded weird.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It definitely would have had a different noise. It would have felt different. The recoil would have been
Sure.
different. You would have wondered what was going on. At that
Yeah.
point, you probably would have wanted to check, make sure it wasn't a squib or anything. But yeah, definitely
That's crazy.
things like that happen.
Yeah.
And he had talked to me about, what was the and I said, like Hornady makes Levolutions to stop this problem. They have a tip all the way through. It's a plastic polymer tip on them, so they're pointy. Different rounds are made for different things. I've had the same kind of issues
Okay.
with lever guns. Things that are traditionally just like lead tips will stick harder.
Right.
So they'll go through 303 Brit. Some of those you load with the weird head. So
Oh,
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
load
yeah,
ones that
yeah.
are like actually pointier, which you would think would be better, won't feed.
Won't feed.
They'll just jam up into the barrel. So it was just an interesting thing that we got it out, and the guy had no idea what happened.
Wow.
He just thought that the last round went off and that he couldn't eject it out. He didn't understand that what happened was this went in, flared, got stuck, and it was the extractor wasn't enough to grab it.
How hard was it to get that out?
It wasn't as bad as you'd think. I just pulled it out with pliers real quick. But I thought it was going to be
real quick. Like
I thought it was
splinter.
I thought it was going to. No, I had to take the whole gun apart.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to take the whole. So there's not a lot of room in these things.
Yeah.
Because they're coming from that tube and getting fed up.
Right.
So it's like really tight. So there's no like you can pull it out with pliers because the bolt was there.
Right.
So I literally had to take the
barrel off and
I went the other way around. So I took the whole back of the guts out and dropped it out through there. But and I'd worked on that gun before.
Oh, okay.
It had some. It didn't have the problems before, but it was. He wanted to have it like really well cleaned.
Oh yeah.
All the way through, and the screws were like sticking in it and stuff.
Gotcha.
So I had taken that whole thing apart. It took a long time, but they're a solid gun, but this was a. I'm not going to say it was an ammo failure.
No.
But it was an ammo failure for the type of gun. Like this gun did not like this ammo.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of key how that goes. But that's one of those random things you deal with during the day that you don't know what's going to come in the door.
Right.
But potentially dangerous too because it's live.
Yeah.
And you don't know if it is in full chambered. So you fire it, it goes off in the store. You know what I mean? So you don't really know what's going on, and you can't see it because the bolt's over it.
Right.
So you're trying to figure out if it's been fired or not. He's telling you he thinks it might or may not be because he's not sure.
Well, at that point, you're going to treat it like
because
it was.
he's going as fast as he can. So that kind of plays key into that. So that's just another kind of interesting thing that comes through.
That's really cool.
Just the way it's sitting there looks
Yeah.
neat.
And what's funny is that precision reloading. We talked a little bit about them beforehand, and I've got their hat on today too. Not on purpose, but
like a billboard today.
yeah, no kidding. So they were talking about it. I didn't know a whole lot about reloading shotguns, and I was trying to figure that out. And so I called the experts, and Precision is by far the experts. And I started learning about case pressures and things like that, and reading books, and the Hornaday, how Hornaday books have kind of changed the way that things were going, and I learned so much from just talking to them on the phone, at Precision, and I mean they're super super smart for reloading stuff, and I know we were going to do a reloading thing on shotgun shells at some point and shells in general, but they were, what was that? Did you hear something?
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
I don't know what it was either.
Okay.
It's probably moose. Oh, but no. So we were gonna do something about that with them. But Precision. They taught me so much about hey, these are case pressures, and this is why we test fire stuff, and this is why you should really follow a manual. Don't go off of YouTube by somebody saying, oh, well, you just add this much pressure, or you just keep adding add powder until you think it's right. Anytime you see something like that, it's wrong. I guarantee it's wrong.
So you have, in reloading in general, you're going to have guidebooks.
Oh, yeah.
And you normally have 5 or 6 big companies put them out.
Yep.
Everybody that makes a press is going to make one, Horney's going to make one, Dillon's going to make one, RCPS is going to make one. Then you have companies that just make reloading information, things like that. They're not all going to have the same information.
Right.
Because they're all going to use different powders and different types and things like that.
Yep.
The powder companies are going to make one. Howden's going to make one, and you get them. And then some of what you can do is once you get kind of good at it, you can do some science. You can do some math. So like if you look and you're going to load, 55 grain 223. Oh God, you're going to find information all day long. You step it up to 62, you're still going to find information. Let's say you got some random 73 grain. You're right. You're not going to find any information on it. Somebody's done it.
Right.
But what you can do is you can look and say, well, here's 55 and here's 63 and here's this and this guy's that. Okay, well, they're using that. I can step it up here. You know what I mean?
Oh,
you
yeah.
kind of do math once you know. But it's also not like you think, too. A lot of people would think things like, for example, if the cartridge is heavier. Oh, if it's a heavier cartridge, let me dump more powder because I need to go faster. No, because now you've upped your cartridge pressures.
Yeah.
So there's things where that goes through, too, like subsonic ammo.
Yep.
A lot of subsonic ammo, because the cartridge is so empty, that you want to run magnum primers.
Right.
So it ignites because you have so
faster.
much more dead
you have more
airspace.
air. Yeah.
So there's a lot of science that goes into it and math that goes into it.
Tremendous amount
And
of math.
I can remember going and having like my notebooks and just having pages of scribble
Right.
on there. And people were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I just sit down here and do math.
Right.
Load a box and then see how they go and then go
Right.
from there.
And that was something that I really, I during this whole reloading, learning about reloading and reloading processes and things like that, I always kind of wondered, well, why would you really need to reload, right? And then you start to understand what, you hear about match grade bullets, right? You say, okay, well, match grade, whatever. Well, match grade is really, really cool because it's, a better fit for whatever. But when you start making custom bullets for your rifle, because you know exactly how long that chamber is, even if it's a millimeter or two different, it makes a difference in accuracy. I didn't realize that, and then when you start to realize it's not just a matter of precision shooting. It's a matter of, all right, I'm going to go take this thing and I'm going to go shoot a deer, but, I might be in, we'll say, Colorado, and I'm going to take a 300-yard shot with a, 300 Win Mag or whatever it's going to be, right? I want to make sure that if I'm taking that long of a shot, and I've practiced taking that long of a shot, I want every single advantage possible, right? So something to think about. I never gave it enough thought to understand what match grade and competition, shooters went through or what you had to do to get there.
Yeah, with your rifle stuff, it gets real complicated because you're going to have tools to measure your chamber.
Yeah.
So what your ultimate goal is that you want your bullet to have the shortest jump as possible from chamber to getting to the laser grooves.
Yeah.
You don't want it to touch the laser grooves, but you don't want it to jump too far.
Right.
So your goal is to get as big as possible, the least amount of space in between without touching beforehand.
Right.
So you ever crack a gun in sometimes it's real tight?
Yep.
Too tight.
Too tight.
You cock it, it's real easy, it might be too short. You want to kind of find that in between. You don't want it hitting. And that's like you'll hear OAL all the time. It's your overall length. Their overall case length is another way to talk about too.
Yep.
So you'll have what your regular schematics say, which would say like, and this is just completely fictional numbers, but hey, your 223 cartridge should be so many millimeters long, from overall case length, whatever. That's your general spec.
Right.
But you want a bolt gun, you want to get your chamber. Your chamber might be 2 millimeters longer, so
right.
you actually want to stretch that out a little bit longer as you can with your bullet, as long as your bullet's okay.
And the brass isn't bang on every single time either.
So
it's close.
So what you do is then you have to trim your brass too.
Right.
So you got black brass in, trim your brass so your brass is all the same. Your whole goal with reloading is to get for precision reloading is to get your lowest standard deviation.
Right.
So there's a little math that you do. It's a little algorithm you do. You fire groups and you take the math and you get there. In my opinion, single digit is about perfect. It's about as good as you're going to get with a person, and it's very achievable. You know what I mean? To get a single digit, it's not hard to do. You just all you need is a chronograph, your math, and just be really the same every time you do it. You'll be right about there. But what you're doing is you're taking with precision shooting and things like that. You're trying to take away as many things, so you have so much human error, that you're trying to eliminate everything else that you can eliminate out of it.
Absolutely.
So if I can say that every single time my rounds are just about the same, because they're never perfect, but if they're all just about the same, then that's just one less thing I have to worry about. Because at the end of the day, you want to figure out and correct what you're doing wrong, not what the gun's doing wrong, not what the cartridge is doing wrong, and The other thing too with that is with your bigger cartridges, we start to get into big things, hot things too, like 22 250s, things like those big varmint rounds. They'll eat the chambers.
Magnums are horrible about
338
that.
will eat a chamber.
All
those things.
7mm mags. 300 Win Mags. They'll all eat chambers.
So your overall length for that cartridge over time will get longer.
Yeah.
Because it will get it's not much, but yet again, it does add a little bit. That's why people say over time they're going to become less accurate.
Oh yeah,
it will. But that's part of the reason. Not so much because it's wearing out barrel.
Yeah, it's breaking in.
It's wearing out the breech. Yeah. So it's those kind of things when you go into it. And then that's why reloading, it's not just sitting at the bench doing it all night. It's then also the going out and firing groups, having boxes, and writing this data down and saving it. And then at home just crunching the numbers and saying, okay, this was this was that, this was that, this was that. And then about reliability. Now there's the whole other angle of reloading, which is guys that like do a lot of like pistol competition, something like that. Not so much about having the perfect standard deviation because they don't care. It's about making the rounds as cheap as they can, as fast as they can, as stable as they can for what they want.
Right.
So they're not measuring, crazy specifics. They're not hand loading each load.
Right.
They got progressive presses with feeders and all that kind of stuff, and they're trying to get it to run as close as it can and do what it wants to do. So that's where the differences kind of come in there. But yeah, one day we'll have a long talk about it. I'd like to set up another, like right where we're at now. I'm in such a in between with housing.
Yeah.
We moved and we haven't set up anything again, but the next time we get a workshop set up, I'd like to sit down and do a whole video showing, why there's 6 presses on the table.
Right.
And why there's all these machines on the table and why, why you're so anal about all the stuff that you do. And it really does make a huge difference.
I think so. So I actually, I got a question that was texted to me just now. And they were saying, as far as what do you recommend? Is there a recommended brand per gun? Is that a legitimate thing or not? So,
are we talking about for ammo?
Yeah, for ammo. Is there, are there matched, ammo to guns? Like,
Okay.
Well, and I can tell you, like Weatherby, they sell Weatherby Select, so forth and so on. But
So here's the thing with Weatherby. Weatherby makes Weatherby cartridges.
right,
So there's Weatherby 7mm mag. There's Weatherby 300.
Yep.
It's not a 300 and the cartridge is made by Weatherby. No, it's Weatherby 300 made by Weatherby.
Right.
So a lot of times there's not many manufacturers of those crazy Magnum Weatherby rounds.
Right.
So a lot of times you're kind of, I'm not going to say stuck with it, but you kind of have to do what they have because that's not a lot of it. There are some rounds that are specifically made only for that gun. Savage makes a 17 HMR, but it's like a special HMR for their semi-auto. No, not the one for their semi-auto gun. They got a 17 HMR, and it's a semi-auto, and it only shoots their 17 HMR semi-auto ammo. So there's some weird things like that where yes, you do, but for the most part, no.
okay,
Mostly, what I would be more concerned about is quality components.
right,
So if you're gonna spend the money and you're gonna shoot something nice, get out there and spend the higher dollar on the higher components. Hornady makes really nice bullets. Sierra makes really nice bullets. You can get some crazy expensive stuff out there if you want. I mean, so we start talking about the heads of the seating dies. So you were talking about case length.
Yeah.
Some of the seating dies, instead of having a little turn on the top where you
Yeah.
can turn and adjust it, then you pull it out and measure it, it's a micrometer built into the top.
oh, okay,
And you turn the actual micrometer.
oh, that's crazy,
That's how specific it is. So if you ever look, you'll see some presses will have micrometers on the top
right,
of the heads.
yeah,
It's not the head is actually moved up and down by micrometer settings. So that's how tight and close it can be.
that's nuts.
Yeah, no, there's
Well, I said thanks.
no, it also depends on who's making. So at one point we were loading, and I would never suggest do this because it's really a waste of time. But we were loading 7.62 by 54R,
Okay,
the Soviet stuff, and we
Yeah.
had found brass cartridge for it. We found a very, very, very expensive brass cartridge. It was
Imagine.
I can't remember the name of it, but it was really, really high end, and it was like $3 or $4 a piece of brass. And we were trying to load a Mosin. We were loading for the cartridge to make this really accurate gun. And we'd done work to the gun. We'd glass fill the stock. We'd crown the barrel. We'd put a muzzle brake on. We'd done all this ridiculous stuff to it. And we just could never get the gun to be accurate.
right,
And we'd spend $100 just in brass. And it never happened. But there was a company that made $3 brass for it. And it was really solid brass. And it worked real well. So there's always going to be that nice stuff. And depending on what you're going to use. Like if you're going out, and let's say you're shooting, 7mm Weatherby mag or whatever, 300 Weatherby mag. What'd you just
yeah,
buy?
Weatherby mag,
300?
Yeah.
Okay, let's say you got 300 Weatherby mag. Let's say it's $75 to $100 a box. Okay,
Yeah, it's
because I'm
about-
thinking
yeah,
it's probably somewhere
it's
right
80,
there, right?
85, yeah.
Okay, so if it's that crazy of a box, after you shoot that first box, you might go buy another box, and then you're gonna have maybe 20 cartridges.
right,
You might as well just go home and load them with the most expensive and best components you can find.
right,
Because you're gonna buy a box, and how many of those are you gonna use a year? 5.
yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
enough to
You know what I mean?
sight it in and then
Sight it in and then take a couple
hopefully
shots.
take a, yeah,
You know? So literally every year you can load up and use the same bullets for the next 10 years.
Right.
If you wanted to. And if you want to go out there and shoot around more, you just have more brass that you have.
Right.
But why cut yourself short at that point?
Oh, I get it.
Because you're not saving any money, really.
Right.
It's still going to cost you a bunch of money.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that you're going to save a bunch of money
Yeah.
reloading is really kind of a myth.
Yeah, it's a myth.
And
It's a
people
big
say,
myth.
oh, well, I save so much money doing it. The time that you have in it,
Oh, yeah.
like my time to me has no value. But if I was really to add up the hours,
Right.
I didn't save any money reloaded by any
Right.
means.
No.
And then on top of that, by the time that you realize, like if ammo prices get really high,
Yeah.
and you realize like I'm going to try to reload now to save money, you should have started
should have
buying
started 10
powder
years
brass
ago.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't add up like that. So that's part of the problem with the reloading. But
Yeah.
and of course too, we just started to touch base with this, and it's a long conversation.
It is.
So if anybody ever has any questions about that reloading, and they want to shoot us an email or talk about it, or have like specific questions about the different types, like we talked about in different discussions,
Yeah.
we can talk about this all day.
Yeah.
So we can have a whole discussion about the different types and everything, and how it works and what's worth. I don't have a big background in the shotgun shells,
But I'm learning.
mainly just because I never had a reason.
Right.
Shotguns to me, the only thing I really ever shot
Yep.
was birdshot, and it was so cheap to just go buy skeet stuff that I'd never ever thought about reloading it, and we just never did too much shotgun stuff. The only time we ever did was we teach here and there with buckshot.
Yep.
So I'd buy like a couple cases of buckshot and be done with it.
I got into it only because I'm a big turkey hunter, right? So trying to find tungsten, 3.5 inch 12 gauge, was incredibly difficult. 2 years ago, and was really, really. I mean, you want to see expensive shells. I mean that's $80. You get 5 of those things, So it gets expensive fast. But like you said, the cost of tungsten is expensive. So for me, I wanted to see if I could reload. Number one, I just wanted to figure out how to do it because I'm that kind of person. But the other reason why I really wanted to get into it was to understand the principles behind it and see if there was a way to make shotgun shells closer, tight knit, pattern so that they pattern right, longer. You've got all kinds of stuff. Whatever you're going to do, make sure that you've got it done the right way. Teach yourself. But I just wanted to see, could I improve upon a shotgun shell when it comes to turkey hunting? Because you're shooting. I mean, you can call them in. I'm a fair chase person, so I think if you're taking a shot over 30 yards, you probably. You probably should have called that turkey in a little bit closer, But I mean, I know guys out there that hunt with 20 gauges, at the youth 870 expresses on a 20 gauge, and they can nail a turkey at 100 yards, and they're throwing a pattern out there like that. I know guys that shoot them with a 410.
So I was just gonna say at the beginning of the season, I had like 5 boxes of 410. Heavy shot, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And somebody was looking for it like crazy because nobody could find it. And I
Right.
happened to have some. And I called the guy back and said, do you want it? And he said, how much is it? And I was like, it's like $40 a box or something. It was so ridiculously high amount. You know what I mean? And he was like, it's that much? And I was like, yeah, it's not cheap. None of that crazy bird shot. None of that crazy, the crazy waterfowling stuff and the crazy.
You have no idea. We'll get into that.
Turkey stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, but by the way, at one point when we were loaded 1,400 feet per second for waterfowl, and we were selling out of that stuff. Like, that's a whole other story. So
they got it up now that, I mean, like the nitros, they don't even sell that stuff anymore. It's 1,700 feet per second. It was breaking guns.
I remember when we were launching that 14, I was like, guys, we were getting really close to breaking guns. I was like, these semi-auto guns are not, but it was, it would rock. And you could hit stuff a lot farther.
Yeah. Shoot a 3.5 inch with a 1,700 velocity, 1,700 feet per second velocity. Oh yeah. I mean, you could watch Berettas and I mean, Benellis and everything just break down. Fingers getting broke. It was crazy.
All right. Well, I think we're over time.
Yeah, we are.
Gonna wrap it up. We'll talk about a couple of things real quick.
Yeah.
Next podcast
will be Thursday, not Friday.
Okay. Well,
It'll be that way through
it'll be
October.
Pre-record probably then.
Yeah,
I don't
probably.
know,
We'll
whatever.
see.
It might pop up on
Well,
Friday.
let us know.
It might pop out on Thursday.
Yeah.
Who knows? I talked to the St. Croix rep over the week.
Yeah.
So I talked about the new lines coming out. St. Croix's got some cool stuff. St. Croix's coming out with fishing rod combos, reels and rods. Yes, true story.
Ooh.
They came out with something really cool for the big musky rods and the big bass rods that have for like throwing like the big crankbaits. Not big crankbaits, big swim baits. They have rods they're calling the grip or something, and they actually have like a pistol grip mode.
Oh, no way.
So when you're doing the figure eights and stuff, you can do it one-handed.
You're not killing your wrist.
They're going to give me one of those to use. So
that's cool.
Yeah, because they're doing the demos. Actually, I saw the line, but I didn't see the ones with the grip. They're the pro tournament or whatever.
Right.
I should have wrote it down, but they're going to get me one of the musky ones.
Oh, that's cool.
To use. So when that comes in, I'll go ahead and show that. That'll be really cool. We're going to purchase the combo sets. We're going to do every SKU.
Oh, cool.
So we'll have those in when they come in. I'll be able to show
Ooh,
those too.
look at
So
that.
they're pretty. I saw them on Monday,
When are they coming in?
and they were pretty nice.
Or when are they
didn't
available
even-
for purchase?
I didn't even put the order in yet, so
Yeah.
we put it in like at the end of the month.
But they won't come in until next year, right?
They'll probably come in like the middle of the winter.
Okay.
So, but I mean that's pretty cool that they're going.
Oh, hell yeah.
So that's neat. They had some other stuff, but those were the coolest thing was the grip and then that because they were just neat stuff that they had talked about they didn't do before, and even the price point. And don't quote me, but the price point wasn't bad. I think it was under $300
For rod,
for
St. Croix rod and reel combo.
Yeah, spinner rod and reel combo. Yeah, was not bad. So and it was nice, felt good. So that's going on. The website's still up. We are still working on the fishing half of it.
Right. We're
getting that up and going. Hopefully that should be soon. I talked to my St. Croix rep about maybe being able to push some of our products on there. That might actually be able to be done.
Now I did check the website. I can't get to like and some other folks checked. You can't get to like the tree stands and things like that yet.
Okay,
But
we will get that up and going.
But it's coming.
Somebody ordered a tree stand.
I know.
Somebody ordered one. So that was you. But we'll get all that up and going. We'll get that going. Some stuff does work. Like we've had people buy knives and like hatchets and stuff like that. So some of that is up and going. So keep paying attention to the store, keep messing with that, and more stuff should be coming on soon.
Cool.
It should be freely going. Christmas time is around the corner, and I do want to talk
don't
about
start that.
one thing is that Buck Knives.
Ooh.
Buck Knives has a really cool program,
Yeah.
and we do this with some people, is that they do custom engraving.
Oh, really?
So if you're a company or you have a lot of friends and you want to do some custom engraved knives, now's about the time to order them for Christmas.
That'd be cool.
So we'll be putting in our orders for those. Some companies around here do it.
Yeah.
So we put that in about this time of year. I think we have like 250 that we have to order so far.
Ooh.
But they just go ahead and get them, and they'll have their company engraved or something engraved.
That's
on
slick.
them. Its price point's not bad.
Yeah.
To have it done, it's not like crazy expensive to get it done.
That's cool.
So it's kind of a neat gift if you have corporate gifts to give away or something like that. That's always fun to do. The website, watch that. The store,
Yeah.
it's coming up. We keep getting new stuff in. Check it out, all that kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, there's always cool stuff in here.
Yeah, we're always pushing some neat projects. Going to have some new T-shirts made here soon too.
Yeah.
Those fly off the shelf really fast, so those are always a nightmare to try to keep in stock.
Apparently you need jackets. Everybody's asking for jackets.
Sweatshirts.
Sweatshirts, yeah.
So here's the problem with sweatshirts is that people like sweatshirts, but they like good sweatshirts.
Oh, yeah.
So
I don't like cheap sweatshirts.
So you get to the point where it's kind of a double-edged thing because you want
they're
people
expensive.
Yeah. So you don't want to buy cheap sweatshirts
But you don't want to have to charge $80
because
for a
you
sweatshirt.
want people to have them and wear them and like them.
Right, yeah.
But then again, you don't want to buy nice. So like if I had them done on like Carhartt sweatshirts,
Yeah.
it'd be like $80.
Oh, yeah.
If not even more.
Yeah. Or duck dry. Have you ever seen that stuff?
Yeah. Like anything like that would be cool.
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah.
It lasts
Absolutely.
forever. But
Yeah.
a lot of people like I have a lot of diehard guys who would buy it. Don't get me
Oh, yeah.
wrong. But there's a lot of guys who'd be like, I don't want to spend that much money for
no.
a shirt here. But then if I give them a cheap sweatshirt, they're like, well, I never wear it. It's just cheap.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
kind
it's,
of
that, it's that happy medium.
yeah, that's the killer there with that. Trying to find those two out. But we're definitely going to get there with that. And then the other stuff that we need to do, we're going to go ahead and draw for the person, get an update of what's going on with our other people and our reps coming on, and then talk about some stuff like that. And then that's about where we're at. Andy, you got anything to add? Any news from any of the world of nonprofit fundraising? Anything? Nothing? Nope. All right. Well, that's all I got. Mike, you got anything else to add?
I think I'm good. The wife's texting me telling me, hey, what gun did you buy?
I thought she already knew.
No, she did. So,
Oh.
no, I was making a joke. I got nothing, man. It's always been good. It's been a good hanging out with you today. And
Thanks to Silencer Central for
Silencer
working with you
Central.
today.
Yeah.
Precision
And,
Reloading. They're good
yeah,
guys.
great folks. Check out my guy Andrew, Alex, and Kovac, I think is his last name. But check them out over at Silencer Central. They've been they're really easy to deal with if you're looking to get into the suppressor world.
Maybe we'll reach out to them. Maybe we'll
Yeah, I think
we'll
he's
chat with them. Maybe have them on or something like that. Work something out.
he's we'll figure that one out. So my wife said so maybe Valentine's Day presents for people who do that. St. Croix rods coming in wintertime. All right, but so there you go. All right, I got nothing. So we're all good.
So have a good one, and
Take somebody out fishing.
thanks
Take
for
somebody
listening.
outside.
Take the kids, do stuff with the kids,
Yep.
do stuff outside.
Absolutely.
It's hunting season's coming on, being in the middle,
It
so
is.
go out there and enjoy it. And if you have any questions or need anything, reach out to us. And that's all I got. Have a good night.
Yeah, bye, everybody.
You've been listening to The Hunting Quest. No matter how crazy, high-tech, or lazy the rest of the country gets, we will always be hunting and fishing. If that's you, you've found your new family. Thanks to our sponsor, Davis Guns and Gear. Thanks for listening to the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. Reach out to us by email at info@thehuntingquest.com and check us out on Instagram and YouTube at The Hunting Quest. See you next time.